Mr. Stoltenberga, good evening and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You said that in the case of the Russian invasion, NATO was not planning to deploy troops in Ukraine and its only focus is on giving support. Is the world day by day closer to war or peace?
We see that the Russian military buildup continues. At the same time, it's not too late to preserve peace, and NATO is strongly engaging in efforts to find a political solution. We have conveyed concrete proposals in a written document to Russia, stating clearly that we are ready to discuss arms control, measures for more transparency of military activities, missiles, and many other issues. And I also actually invited Russia to a series of meetings in the NATO-Russia Council to sit down and to listen to the Russian concerns and to find a political solution to the conflict caused by the Russian military buildup.
But both and America and Russia state they support peace. We got an impression that Europe is trying to keep a neutral position. What is your personal attitude? You're a leader of a military alliance. You are surrounded by generals whose first thought is war. That's exactly what they are trained for. Who is currently so-called the voice of reason in NATO?
Well, NATO's purpose, main task, is to preserve peace. And NATO has been able to preserve peace for all NATO allies for more than 70 years, because we stand together and we protect each other. So the purpose of deterrence and defense is not to provoke a conflict, but to prevent a conflict. I have worked with, and I'm working with many generals, and actually my experience is that they are very much aware of the importance of preventing war, because they know how terrible and disastrous war and conflict will be. And that's also the reason why NATO as a political military alliance always seeks political solutions. We believe in deterrence, defense, and dialogue. We believe that as long as we are strong and united, we can also, of course, engage in political dialogue, and we have done that many times, and we're ready to do it again.
But is there a signed agreement that NATO will not spread to the east? It is something that Russia keeps insisting on.
No, that's not correct. No such agreement was ever signed. And on the contrary, we have, as 30 allies, enshrined in our founding treaty, stated clearly that NATO's door is open for countries in Europe that meet the NATO standards. NATO has never forced any country into the alliance. This is about respecting the free and independent decisions of sovereign nations. And of course, we respect them when they try to join, as the Baltic countries, Poland, and many other countries have done over the last decades since the end of the Cold War. But we also respect countries when they decide not to join NATO. So we strongly support and respect the decisions by Serbia not to aspire for NATO membership. That's a sovereign, independent decision by Serbia, and NATO absolutely respect that decision, as we respect the decision of Sweden, Finland, close partners, not to aspire for membership. So we don't want to return to the age of spheres of influence, where big powers decided what small neighbors could do. Each country in Europe has the right to choose its own path. Some decide to aspire for NATO membership. Many have joined through democratic, free decisions, and some have decided not to aspire for membership in NATO. And of course, we respect that too. This is about respecting free, independent decisions by sovereign nations, as Serbia, not aspiring for membership, or as the Baltic countries, Poland, joining NATO because they wanted so.
Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, said that NATO could not be considered a defensive alliance, taking into consideration its military operations here in Yugoslavia and Libya and Afghanistan. What would be the main trigger to activate the alliance forces to respond immediately?
Well, NATO's purpose is to preserve peace. NATO is a defensive alliance, but to preserve peace, we have made it clear that an attack on one ally will trigger a response from all allies. And by doing that, no NATO ally has been attacked by an armed attack. And that's the way we have preserved peace for NATO allies. Then, of course, we have been, for instance, active in the fight against terrorism. That was the case in Afghanistan. We were active in the Balkans, but that was to actually help to end brutal ethnic wars. And we also had a very clear UN mandate in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we have the Kosovo presence. We have the KFOR forces, the NATO forces in Kosovo, also based on a clear UN mandate. But that is actually to ensure stability, to preserve peace, that we have the presence in the Balkans today.
In your opinion, when it comes to safety in the Balkans, what is a more serious challenge, the current state in Bosnia and Herzegovina or the status quo in Kosovo and Metohija? Does NATO have mechanism to prevent increasing tensions, which are maybe possible in April when Serbia organizes the elections? Will NATO help European institutions to organize the elections in Pristina?
So NATO plays an important role to support efforts to maintain peace, to prevent conflict, and to find a political solution when it comes to, for instance, the ongoing dialogue, or the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. And we support the EU-facilitated dialogue, and that's a key role of the NATO presence in Kosovo, is to support the political dialogue and also to ensure the freedom of movement, all communities in Kosovo. So we are, of course, working together with the European Union, with all the European institutions. They are more directly engaged in some of the political processes. We have an office in Sarajevo. We have actually also an office we have the KFOR forces in Kosovo, and then we also have an office in Belgrade. And of course, over the last years, we also have more members. Both North Macedonia and Montenegro have decided, again, through democratic, peaceful processes, to join our alliance, and we welcome them. So NATO plays a role in the Balkans in different ways to help to try to prevent a new conflict.
Your term of office in NATO ends in September this year. You will be governor of the Central Bank of Norway. As an economist, ex-prime minister and the minister of finance, are you of the opinion that you will take position as a political winner of a world crisis or as a commander-in-chief?
Well, now I'm the Secretary General of NATO, which is a political military alliance, and where we realize that we need to be strong to find political solutions, and that's exactly what NATO has been doing for many years. Then when I go back, of course, I will focus on the Norwegian Central Bank and also managing the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. But my focus now will be on NATO 100%. There is no change for NATO because my tenure is going to end on the 1st of October, and I will take up my duties in the Norwegian Central Bank towards the end of the year after that. So no change for NATO. I will stay here to the end of my tenure. And I also actually very much appreciate that as being in my position as Secretary General of NATO, I've also been able to work with Serbia, a partner which I think is important for NATO, and I welcome the fact that despite differences and also despite some differences in the past, we are able to work together, Serbia and NATO, as close partners, and that's extremely important in a situation where we see that tensions are rising in parts of the Western Balkan.
Mr. Stoltenberga, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.